Just be, let's see. So here. All right. I wish I could have my music go on the stream, but I haven't really figured out how to do it with this program yet. I know there's yeah, let me try this. No, I can't really get this to work. Yeah. Might be a different module. Genuinely have no idea how to work with this. Might be media. No, definitely not that. I'll figure this out later. If anyone has input on how to do this, then I can, then I'll put on some gems for you guys while this is going, because I won't be talking quite as much this stream unless it's answering questions or explaining something typically confusing. I will pop out the live chat though. It's like there is one person here. Done. Pop out chat. There we go. All right. Keep this over here. Let's make it small. All right. All right. So, what I'm doing right now, just as a brief, is I am I'm reformatting the way that the templates are generated in Spike and Contentful. So, I've got this new plugin that I made called Before Loader Compile, and this is a custom plugin that is a part of Reshape Loader, and basically it exposes Reshape's options right before it's about to compile it. And the way this is made is kind of cool. I can just pull it up really quick for background because that's a little bit important. There we go. It's very simple. This is it. So this is just a little bit of webpack hackery that it just will add a manual plugin hook here, right at any spot that you want. You can add this to any loader, any kind of name. This will also do async hooks if you do async, although the plugin signature changes a little bit. And whatever you pass here is what the function will get. So you can see this will get the options. And this is the options as they're fully compiled with the context and everything right before Reshape's about to run. So this will actually allow me to come in with Contentful and add custom options for templates like, let's see. with Contentful, you have this option here. It's down here. This template option, I'm sure that some of you guys have used it, where essentially it will take an array of data coming from this remote source, and it'll compile an individual page for each one. So what I'm trying to do here is essentially change the method that those are generated, because previously it was a super janky way of doing it, which was by manually calling reshape and trying to reconstruct a fake loader context here, because I couldn't figure out a good way to add the options as part of Webpack's compile process just for that one particular file. So that's a quick background. I know this is not so thorough, but if anything is confusing, I'm happy to take any and all questions. I'm just going to kind of work through this passively, and it'll be a good time. And I'll probably be on for like maybe like half an hour or so before I have to head home. And I'll be checking this, and occasionally I'll go check Gitter and see if anyone actually is watching me. Which there are, shockingly. It says I'm offline though. I don't know why. I hope this is fine. I don't really know what the story is of this. It said it was healthy before. I'll just make sure I'm actually going. Alright, looks like we're set. Okay. So let's run this up. So my first step here is that I want to go through all the options and pull out all of the options that have templates so that I have a record of all the templates I need to inject into Webpack, because hi Mr. Disco, how's it going? So as you guys saw, we have these template paths which we use to pull out templates, and I need to find all of the content types that have one of these so that I know and I can inject them into the Webpack compile pipeline. So I'm going to do that pretty quickly up front, and then probably in the first hook that I can, which is this run hook here for Webpack, I will add these templates to the pipeline using a nice utility method. So I was just down here kind of going through, looking at the content types, and I know I'll be able to filter for templates. So what I'm going to do is, what I need to store is basically just the paths, I think. And these are resolved relative to project root. Let's see, how do I resolve them? File path. I resolve it relative to the root. Okay. So I'm just going to store those because that's all I need to inject into Webpack. So let's do, I'll just run a filter then. This is going to be on content types. And this is going to be content type. And it looks like I also do need the root context. So I'm going to pass in compiler. And that is up here, so this will just be compiler. All right. And this will be CT template path, and it's only going to return this if I need to reduce, actually. I feel like I always end up needing to reduce. Yeah, I need to reduce because not every content type has a template option, so a map would give me a bunch of undefined outputs. So I'll just say if not ct.template, and we return our memo. This is our memo object, which is this. So if I don't have a template, I'll just return that and move on. Otherwise, I will pull this path out. I'll just push this directly to our memo, and then I'll return the memo anyway. Okay. So I'm going to return this, and this, well, this should effectively just pull out. For this example, I only have one, and it does have a template, so it might be better to write a test that has a couple, and some of them don't have templates to make sure this works, but I'm just going to roll with this for now, and I'll add more thorough tests later. So let's just log this out. All right. Again, any questions, feel free to shoot. Okay. It looks like I had a second only here. I'm actually running 2 tests, so let's find the other one. Here it is. All right. This one, well, we know that it works because we got that empty array, so that's good. So, yep, there's my full path to the template, which is great. That's what I needed. So now I need to actually inject these templates into the webpack pipeline. I hope I'm not bothering anyone. I'm just sitting in the middle of the office here, speaking to my computer awkwardly. Seems like nobody's here anymore. Okay. Yes, so that's going to happen in this hook. So I have it stashed away here, and that's going to come in on the this object. I'm just going to comment this. And I have a feeling that we're going to need the key here because we'll need to relate that later, but let's just deal with that when it comes up. We'll start simple. So here we are in the run method. And this is where we go and actually fetch the data from Contentful. In addition to this, I'm going to be adding the templates. So one of the cores of how Spike works is Spike util. Check. 5 people. Wow, okay. I am always shocked that people actually come here and are not bored by this or confused, but please, if you are, let me know. And I'll try to make it more entertaining. So this is the real key here. Add files as Webpack entries. Typically, you need to run a require in a JavaScript file to have Webpack process a file. But this magical method will just add any file path directly to Webpack's pipeline, which is great. So I have compilation here, and this will just take 1 or more files. So I'll just pipe all the templates directly in. And if I'm not mistaken, this is actually as async. Should be documented. Let's see. It's going to check up on it. Yeah, this is async. It returns a promise. So I need to validate that this is actually finished here. So I'll do a little bit of promise wizardry. I want to pretty much fire this off as quickly as possible while the rest of this is happening. So let's see. I think that means I break this out into a separate function then. This will just return This is just a promise implementation that has a couple extra utilities, conveniences. This will be, let's see. We'll make this fetch contentful data, and then we'll have this other one be that seems clear enough to me. So let's pull this. Here's our validate. This needs docs. I'll do that in a sec. This is fetch contentful data. And this has to take all, well, okay. So this stuff can come out, actually. That can be a regular promise. And I'll run the done code down here. This is for success. And if it is successful, I'm just going to call done, which is the webpack async callback. And if it's an error, I will call done with whatever the error is. This looks a little bit silly, but this is a when.js thing. So when you call done instead of then, it knows that you're finished processing promises, and any errors that are uncaught will be thrown as usual instead of suppressed. Oh, I hid my chat. Sorry. Okay, lots of action going on anyway. All right. So this will take compiler and compilation. At this point, I need some formatting. Okay. And this will take, I think I just need compilation here. Do I use this? Yeah, I do. So I need to call both of these as well. Okay. All right. So now I just need to define this. I'll do docs for this in just a second. This takes compilation. Util. So I have an instance of Spike util that I create here. So I'll have access to this lovely access to this add files as webpack entries function, which is cool. So I'm going to put that to work in here with compilation first. Second will be where I stashed away the templates. And I'll return that because I know that returns a promise. And it can error, and if it does, then so be it. It will throw an error out of this plugin. Okay, so, oh hi, yeah, there's just a little bit of a delay, I think, with the chat, so I'm not sure why that is, but you know. Hi everyone. All right. So this is my like little guide here that I commented in for myself. Okay, so far all we've done is gone through the config and pulled out any piece of the config that contains a template like this, and got the full path to the template so you have it available. And then we save that away under this ._templates. And then in here, we are fetching contentful data, which we already were doing, so this didn't change at all. And then we also added this second method where we add the templates to the webpack pipeline so they get compiled. And that we wrote down here, pretty straightforward because this abstracts most of the logic. We just passed in the paths to any templates that we have and added them as webpack entries. And my plan is to use this custom hook that we added here, this before loader compile custom hook, and modify the templates options so that they get the locals for the particular item that they're generating for, right? This item variable. So if you've used this before, you probably know what I'm talking about. If not, you might be a little confused, but feel free to drop a question in the chat. I'll try to handle it. Okay. So let's see. Let's do some docs for these. So that's all that's doing. This is a compiler. This is a compilation class. This is webpack compilation, and we return a promise. Yep, so nothing too wild happening here. It just goes through the content types option that you passed into the plugin. And it will run transforms if needed. And then it just goes and fetches it. This client is the contentful client. So it just goes and fetches it from contentful, and then it will map it back, do a transform if needed again, and then assign that to your locals that you passed in under add data to. And here we're taking all the templates we pulled earlier and adding these to the webpack pipeline. So let's document this. What do I call these? Single page templates. So I just realized I don't think I'm causing a ruckus in this office. No. It's hard to know when you have headphones on. So what I just realized is that for most of these, I actually need to compile them multiple times. So I'm trying to think about how I'm going to handle that situation, because I don't think that I can get Webpack to take the same entry and run it like 5 or 6 times. But what I can do is I can add 5 or 6 instances of the same template, and for each one I can add a different set of local variables. So previously this had just been a manual write. Like you could see here, I'm calling reshape manually to process the template, and this is mapping through each item in our data that we're doing. So I would manually write one for each, but I don't like this because I don't want to be manually writing stuff. I want it to go and get passed through Webpack, because it introduces a lot of bugs when you pull it out and do it this way rather than letting it go through the compiler as all the rest of the files do. So my question now is, what am I going to do when I need to actually compile this like 5 or 6 times? I'm trying to think of what the answer might be. I know that it would definitely be possible and not difficult to add this a few times. But I feel like there might be another possible way to do this. That may or may not be. I'm thinking about the loader, right? Because we have this custom hook in that gives a lot of power to the plugin to make modifications to how the loader works, which is really cool. And I'm wondering if we can pass something through to the loader to have it generate multiple assets. I don't think that we can, because I think that what webpack wants is for the loader to get called once per asset. This is a problem I'm going to run to again soon, because we're going to have to... I already have a project in the pipeline that I know we're going to have to run internationalization for. And Contentful and a few other CMSs have the options for the localization already, which is great. But the question is, how do we consume those localized options and generate multiple templates and compile it a few times, one for each locale? So this is not like... This is a problem that I want to approach the right way, because I know that it's going to come up again. And I feel like I've already filed an issue in webpack about this a long time ago, when I was trying to write out the helpers for client-side templates generated by Reshape, and I was wondering if when I processed it with this loader, I could have it generate one separate asset that contained the that contained the helpers, and then another one that actually contained the template. And what I ended up doing is squashing them together, like you can see here. Oh no, my computer froze. Oh no. Didn't crash? Okay, now we're good. I just put them in before the template is exported. This is actually Reshape's. This is Reshape's client template right here. It has to put in this like shared runtime. This is for like functions like escaping. Functions like escaping HTML and like other common things that are used frequently. And right now you can see there's a to-do here, because this isn't efficient. If you have like 12 client-side templates, I've got this same exact code coming in here before every template. So I would prefer to break this out as a separate module. The problem is that Webpack only wants to export one module per loader run. And so way back in the day, I filed an issue. I feel like I should just go to one of these call rooms so that... Okay. This is obviously a very professional thing that we're doing right here. Well, let's see if anyone's still watching me on that note. Wow, there still are people watching. Okay, that's shocking. All right, so hopefully it's easier to hear me now. This is just like me rubber duck debugging this to a camera where 4 people are watching and not saying anything, but that's fine. We'll see how it plays out. So yeah, we have this runtime that gets exported, and if you have 12 client-side templates, it's the same thing on everyone, which is kind of a waste. it's not a big deal because we have gzip, and anything that's identical is pretty much completely eliminated. The impact of that is eliminated by gzip. So I wasn't super concerned about this, and I just put it in here because I couldn't figure this out. But I did file an issue way back about this, like multiple exports per loader type thing, and I feel like it's going to be the type of hack that we're going to end up needing, because if I am putting one template through the loader and I want it to generate a few different assets based on variations. Oh my god, this is the mouse thing that's happening again. This totally happened to me last time. If it pops up again, I'll turn off Bluetooth. But if we want to have this one asset processed and generate multiple variations of outputs based on different sets of locals, which is exactly what we're doing here, is what we're going to have to do for internationalization, which is why this is a really important problem. Because here we're getting, a few different items, and we have the same view, but we're generating the same view a few times for a couple of different sets of locals, right? And so it's going to be the same thing that we get exactly once we're talking about localization. And so I want to I know that one option is that if I know we're localizing, I can map through this and add a bunch of extra entries of the same template and then assign each one. There it goes. All right, I'm sorry. Let me just flip this off real quick. Bluetooth off. Okay. Yeah, I could just add a bunch of the same template to webpack's pipeline, but something doesn't seem right to me about that. It doesn't quite seem like the right way to do things. And obviously neither does this. So I'm going to look back in this history of this issue because I feel like I can find it. Oh my god, what just happened? Did I just do the Zoom thing? Yeah, I did. Webpack. And hopefully there's some insights we can that can be had from this. I'm going to just get rid of is open and look for ones that I made. And let's see. Yeah, here it is. Returning multiple results from a letter. Cool. All right. This was a long time ago in August. Okay, so he goes, you can call the callback with multiple parameters. It doesn't result in multiple modules. Embed a require to your shared runtime. Yeah, so my problem that I brought up here is that I don't have a single file where my shared runtime is. Since Reshape plugins can actually add to the runtime, there's only one plugin that does this right now, and it's the expressions one, but it's a possibility that you can add to the runtime, meaning that if you have a function that's used frequently at runtime rather than compile time, you could put that function onto the runtime and that will be made available by default to all your templates. So it looks like what he's trying to say here is that to add another module from a loader, the loader needs to contain a require. So this would need to be like, if I put in here require something, then that will pull that module into this result. But what I'm asking is, can I dynamically generate another module here? Could I generate a second module and not just require another module that already exists? And he's saying you still need the require call in order to have it be available. You can generate a require call to a loader directly. So he suggested something. This didn't really end well, I guess. But what he suggested essentially was that I made a custom loader called from base64. And then that was odd. What's going on here? Okay, we're back. My computer decided it was finished with my bullshit, and it was gonna log me out. So it did, and then I was logged out. So apologies for that. I hope this is still actually working. We'll find out in just a moment. If it is, it looks like it has resumed, despite it saying it's offline. Although most people manage to leave, which is not that shocking. While they have the chance, you know. Let me just get a refresh on this, and we'll get back to what we were talking about before. Dun, 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 dun. We'll also say sorry to the fine people that were checking it out about it going offline. Okay, message was deleted. All right. Offline for a moment. We're back now. Okay. We're back in action. All right, healthy stream. Most people left. That's okay. Wow, look at that. This is almost real time. All right. So let's get back to what we were talking about. So what I was saying is that his suggestion, and maybe I can get a better suggestion now, and so I probably will hit up Sean Larkin on Twitter and see if he has any better suggestions, because he's pretty responsive to this kind of stuff and works on core. But what he suggests is that I make a loader that essentially is called from base64, and then I take the code that I'm trying to generate. So where's my, okay. So in this case, no, it's here. In this case, what I would do is actually run reshape on 2, 3, 4, whatever number I need of different things to create multiple modules. And then I would take the code produced from it, run it up as base64, and pass it to a loader called from base64. And that loader would unbase64 it into code, and that would be it. And then I would take this output and just have it be as many require statements as I wanted that would require in these base64 multiple modules, which is interesting. I'm sure it's not efficient, and I haven't actually tried to write this from base64 loader, although I'm sure I could. I kind of asked if there was one around, or like how he just came up with this, because there wasn't really a lot of explanation or details around it, and as you saw, I didn't get much of a response. So that's a possibility. I don't know if it would work well with Spike, because Spike looks for these webpack entries here, and all of the files in your tree when Spike compiles your project are added in this same way with the same util method. It just reads your project tree. If you were watching my video before walking through Spike Core, this will be no surprise. It just reads your file tree and it runs this same thing on all your files. So it's looking for entries like this. So I know that if I just add multiple entries and compile them slightly differently, that it will work pretty well. But that
method kind of makes me uncomfortable for a few reasons. So I'm trying to explore alternatives, but I don't think that this is going to work. I feel like it would be great if there were a way in webpack for me to have, I don't know why this is up. It would be really great if there were a way in webpack for me to run this callback from the loader with multiple modules and have it output them as separate modules. As of this August 18th, 2016, there was not. I kind of assume that that is still the case now. But it's possible that we could ask about it, which I will. And it's also possible that we could pull request webpack to add this feature. And that would be awesome because that would be a very large, significant code addition. And I've done some source reading on webpack, but that would definitely be stretching the limits of my knowledge of how the system works, especially because their test suite is absolutely absurd. If you want to have a fun time, just try. Oh, let me pop out my chat again just in case. I always have a very silent audience here. Sorry guys, putting you on the spot. But really, I mean, you're here listening to my like rambling. You might as well say something. I don't know. Yeah, that would definitely push the limits. And if you want to see something ridiculous, just clone webpack and then just run npm test and just watch the absolute chaos that is the like. It's got to be like 7,000 tests or something that they have in there. It's completely ridiculous. Navigating that test suite, I'm not looking forward to. But that might be how we have to do this. So we will see. I think that for now, I'll talk now. Okay, great. Start talking. I think that for now, the way to go is to do the way that we know is going to work and will be easy. And that is to run this up a few times, as many times as we need. Add an entry for that. Now, my question, let's see, my only question about this is whether adding multiple entries with the exact same file name is going to interfere with the way that Spike extracts and writes files down the line. So I'm going to look into the core and kind of take a look at how we extract the files. And again, shameless plug, if you have not seen the video we did last time, it was a live stream, very exciting times, walking through all of the code in Spike Core. I'd strongly recommend that. And happy to take any questions on that now or like whatever, anytime if you want to ask me. You know, I'm always around thinking about this and working on it. So this is the spot where we grab these dependencies and export them. And what we're doing here is totally, it's totally getting them and exporting them based on a path. And this is just going to find the first result. Is it? I don't know. Just, let's see. I think this will only find one. But let's see. I think it'll only find one. First element in the array that satisfies. Okay, yeah. So what will happen if we add those multiple files is that they will compile correctly and they'll sit there in webpack. But when we come here in Spike to extract them and export them, it will only get the first one and not the other one. So in order to do it in this manner, we need to make a modification to Spike Core such that it finds all of the ones that match instead of the first one, which for most of the time is just going to be one. But we need to get this back as an array. And then it would need to go through and write all of the options. And you might be thinking, okay, there's another problem here, which is that when it writes them out and they all have the same path, it'll keep overwriting each other and keep writing to the same path. But luckily, we have a lovely, let's see, output path. Yeah, so we have this outpath property, which can be set by plugins, as it says here, to create a custom output path that we would be able to add. We would be able to add this in, I think. So this would allow us to take a bunch of dependencies out of Webpack that have the same source path and generate them at different output paths, in theory. Now, the outpath thing, let's see, is attached to, I guess it's attached directly to the dependency, right? What is F? Oh, it's in process files. Okay. So where do we do the processed files? We do that in here. This is interesting. Okay, so so this make hook runs after the run hook. So what we'll be doing here is all of this templating things, like our contentful data fetch, which we need in order to determine how many of these to add. So this would be moved into, or rather after this method, because we need to know not only the path of the template, but also how many items came back from contentful in the content type that has this template, right? So that we can add the right number of template entries to Webpack to compile. So we will need to actually, right now, we're running this inside of an all. So these both run in parallel because with the initial plan, I wanted to run them as fast as possible. So if I could do this adding at the same time as I was fetching this data, then all the better, right? But now that we need to generate a proportional number of templates to the amount of data we get, this has to run, and then afterwards this has to run. It's not a big deal. It's obviously necessary, so it's not like we could make it faster. But the structure of how these two run will have to change, if that makes any sense, which I hope it does. So that's fine, and that's an easy change to make. The question is, how do we modify the out path? Because what happens basically is we have this add files as Webpack entries, and it goes off, and it adds them all as Webpack entries. And then Spike Core later on in this make hook, which comes after the run hook, so we've already added them as entries here, this is where we actually add the core files, which is interesting. But what we're also doing is pulling things into the Spike files option, right? So, okay. This is more involved than I thought. This is a very involved fix, but I think it's an important one. And I guess it was a good one to stream because we're really going into the weeds here. So what happens up here, as we all know, is that this is where it goes through. It's called sort files, but this is where it goes through the file tree, and it reads files, and it sorts them into different categories. The problem with this now is that we depend on the you could see this .options.files. This is where sort files puts back its files. And it sorts them into whether they're being processed by Spike or not, etc. So that's why this is called processed files. But you could see when we're doing our output here, what's happening is that we are using the processed files map that we created here when we read the file tree in order to decide what's going to get pulled out from Spike. However, these templates are not in the file tree at all. So we can add them as webpack entries here, and that's fine. But since we go through and actually pull out and write out things from the processed files, a variable that we created when we read the file tree, those aren't actually going to be in there. Now, we could add them in. We definitely could add them in because we can get the Spike options. And in fact, we do that. Well, you could just run this .util.get Spike options, and that brings back the Spike options. And these are mutable. So if I mutate these options, so what I'd have to do is wait. I'd have to inject my webpack entries up front, potentially in the make hook. And it would have to happen, I guess it could actually be before or after this one. So probably I would want to move, I probably would want to move this piece into a make hook instead of the run hook. Like they are here, because I assume they're in this hook for a good reason, which is this is the spot at which you can add them. So I'd need to move that to this make hook in webpack. And then I also would need to take these templates and add them, inject them into the Spike options as processed files. Each one of them with a custom output path, right? Because down here, once we get to extracting the files, which comes from Spike's options, not Webpack, right? This is reading through our custom list of files that Spike has processed, and then just matching it to one of Webpack's modules, right? So this is just pulling the source from Webpack, but what we're reading here is our list of files that we generated ourselves by reading the file tree up here. So I would need to not only add it as a Webpack entry, but I also would need to add it to Spike's list of processed files. So this is a more involved of a thing, and something I think probably will need to be simplified a little bit somehow, but I'm kind of just working through it now. Any feedback welcome, by the way. Let me just move this over a little bit. Yeah. Okay. And so we would need to add it here, and we also would need to add it here. And then when we add it as to Spike's options as processed files, right, we would need to add some options, and we would need to add the out path here. And each one would need to get a different out path depending on this property right here, output. That seems feasible, actually. I don't see any reason that that would not be possible. It's complicated, for sure. It's complicated, but I think it would do the trick. Yeah, I think it would do the trick, and it would just write it out just like this. So what we're talking about, let me just write this out, because I need this to stay sane when things get so complicated for my little brain. All right, so I'm just gonna get rid of this. What I need to do is first get all templates, content types with templates specifically, right? I need those because those need to be dealt with in this particular manner, and the ones without templates, we don't have to do any of this. And then I need to fetch the data from contentful, as usual. Okay, and after this, sorry for the linter errors, which are just always there. I love this linter though, it's amazing. It saves me from a lot of errors. I should probably also use flow, but I'll deal with that later. Okay, fetching data from contentful as usual. Now, for each content type, I guess I don't even need to do this, right? Because I'm already going to do it here. For each content type with a template, we need to for each content type with a template. Oh, okay, let's make this more programming. If content type has a template for each data item, right? For each data item in the content type that we just fetched, we need to add a webpack entry in the make hook, and we need to add an entry to spikes processed. It's let's see, we can actually get the full path here. It's spike options dot files dot process. Spike options dot files dot process with custom output path. Was weak. Okay. A custom output out path according to our that was wild. According to the output function, right, that we get here, because at this point we have the data, so we can already pipe that in here. And we're looping through it. This is going to be part of a loop for each data item. For each data item, we need to create a webpack entry if it has a template, and we need to add to spike options files.process with a custom out path so that they are written according to the way that they should be written. And we're not even done, because we also need to add the custom locals. We need to add this item variable, which is what we have that reshape hook that you saw here. That's what we have this hook for. So this is the spot where we can jump in and we can modify the options to add that item before it compiles. Those are the three things we need to do. So this is actually the only thing here. So I'm going to just do that. Okay, and wow, it's getting real wild out there. Everyday parties. I have to go soon too, it's really late. Okay, but I just wanted to work through this, and I figured why not stream it. By the way, let's see if anyone's watching. Still. Dun, 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 dun. 3 people, the loyal 3. Appreciate it, guys. Look at this wild fluctuation. We even had 6 at one point. All right, that's enough of my business. Okay, so finally we need to, so these both happen in the make hook. All right. But we have a separate hook, so and this is outside of this loop. So let's do this. We'll do make hook. All right, and then we have the let's what is it called again? Before loader compile. Before loader compile hook. Okay. So in this hook, we need to let's see. We need to get back into this zone here. It's too bad that we need to split these between hooks like this. Kind of wonder if we do. It's possible we could like do the work we need to do here and like cache it out into an option of some sort. Let's just write this. Okay. So here we need to, if content type, I'm just going to repeat myself for now to get things straight, has a template for each. Well, no, for the loader compile hook, I can actually get out the path, right? Because look at this. This hook gets this options object, and in the options object is this .resource path. So I know that this is going to get called with a bunch of the same resource path. And each time it is, I need to apply the next data item here into the options, right? This like type of complexity is the reason why I didn't want to have to do it this way. I feel like there's got to be an easier way. I mean, the easier way is if I could export multiple modules, but such is the life of a hacker. Sometimes you need to work around your constraints. Okay, so this will be fire for each of the previously added templates. Now, what I can do for sure is I will know as soon as this is going off for a custom template, a single page template, and not just for a regular file, because this will go off for all files. Any file I can jump in and change here. This is not discriminating. So the first thing I need to do is cut it down to just one template. So I need a list of the template paths like I have here, actually. So this type of thing will come in useful somewhere. It's just not, oh great, that's Chief Digital Officer, lovely, of the world, I guess. Thanks for the follow, Chief Digital Officer. So I need a list of all single page templates. And we need to say if the currently processing file is a single page template. I hope this is at least, even if this doesn't make any sense to you, I hope it's at least mildly interesting just to like see how I think through a problem. And any feedback welcome, because I probably do it very slowly and in a dumb way, but this is the only way I can make heads or tails of this type of thing. So if the file that's currently processing is a single page template, then we're going to need to do something with it for sure. If not, we definitely won't need to do anything. So it'll be something like an if-else check to match it'll match like, I'll just do like, it'll be like options.filename, because we know that that is where we're storing the currently processing file name, this .resource path, right? So we can match that to what we have all the templates. They're in content types. That will be like the same type of pull we have here. It will match our array of templates. So it'll like search to see if we can get a match between these two. And if we get one, then we're doing something. We're adding some locals. Now, the part that's confusing is that we're going to get this to fire off multiple times. So, and there doesn't need to be any particular ordering at all, right? So even if something got really mixed up and I had, in this method, I had added, oh no, there does need to be ordering because I have the out path. Right, so these have to be ordered exactly correctly because each one of these modules coming through has been paired in the spike options with a custom out path, right? Is that even going to work? Honestly, I don't even know if I was thinking straight that that was going to work, right? Yeah, because this gets an array. Everyone writes that path. Yeah, that'll work. We've been over that. So what's weird is that we have like these two like different things going on here, and one of them is our list of files to be processed with Spike, and we hold on to that, and that holds on to a bunch of metadata about the files and how we're processing them and how we're going to write them out and what extensions they have, etc. And then we also have webpack's compile process, and that doesn't care about any of the Spike stuff. And is completely unrelated to it. And the only way that we relate the two here is through the path. But while this previously was an adequate way to relate the two, because the paths were unique, once we start adding multiple modules with the same path, I suddenly get a little bit nervous about the fact that we no longer actually have a direct, like, unique identified coupling between our Spike data and our Webpack data. So what I'm thinking is, like, what we could do is we could keep a counter for each time this hook goes off, and like add the first piece of data, add the second piece of data, add the third piece of data. What I'm concerned about is, like, what if the order is not exactly retained? I wouldn't be shocked if it wasn't. There's no reason that Webpack should need to retain the exact same order. I assume that it's just trying to do it as fast as it can. So I want to have a more reliable way than just the file name for me to be able to tell which entry I'm pairing with which piece of data up here. That's what I'm thinking about right now. Now, I think there are some hacky ways we can do it. And if you saw the last screencast, you might recall that we have this lovely thing called the source loader that is incredibly important to the way that Spike works, and takes advantage of a hacky little piece of Webpack, which is that we can actually attach custom properties to the Webpack modules from their loaders, which is cool. And I think that's great. But what we're trying to do here is to add a custom property to the Webpack module from a plugin instead of a loader. And I'm sure that there is a way to do this because plugins are much more powerful than loaders. It's just easy with this loader because the loader processes sources one at a time. This will get one source at a time and I'll just run it. And so I know that this ._ module exists because I just dug it up in the docs, and that represents the Webpack module. And this I can come and pull back out in a plugin, which we do, as you may already know, in the spike core plugin when we're trying to get the source back out. Happens right here. So you can see that that hacky property is actually on our webpack module that we filtered out here by path matching, right? So what I kind of want to do is I want to say we need to add a unique identifier to, and you know what? It might already have a unique identifier, to be honest. I think it's very likely, actually, that Webpack adds a unique identifier, an ID to each module that we could just piggyback on. But either way, we need to keep track of it. I'll say keep track of it. Keep track of a unique identifier for this module. And so maybe we'd be able to get it back off of the return data from this add files as webpack entries thing, because you saw earlier that this is a promise, which means that it returns something. And so if it returns like the module data, including an ID, then what I could do is take that ID and I could pair it up here, right? I need to keep track of this unique identifier, and I need to pair it with a copy of the data that is associated with this template, right? Because each template has one of the items that we're going through, like one of your posts. It takes that post data, that's the item. So I need a good association between, like, up here in the make hook, I add it to the pipeline, I add it to Spike's pipeline, and then I need to have here, since I'm moving this same process through to two different hooks, because they have to be in two different hooks, because they jump in at different points in the compile process, right? I need to add this, let Webpack compile it, and then come back before I run it with reshape and mod the options. So I need to get an ID on this, and I would essentially want to store it internally at something like an array of like objects that were like template is the like, you know, template. Like this could be the same between all of them, you know. It would have like, do I need the content type even, honestly? I don't even know if I need that. I think it just needs the item, right? Because that's all I'm doing. I'm only just injecting this one thing. So it would just be the template name, because I need to match that. And then it would be the data, and then it would be like the ID. Because then here what I could do is I wouldn't have to do this whole, actually I don't even need the template name, in fact. I just need the data and the ID, right? Because here what I can do is, well, okay. Okay, so I'm only getting back this options thing, but that doesn't, and this doesn't actually have the ID, but this has the ID because it's on this dot underscore module, right? Because if you recall from our lovely, losing my files. Let me get back to source loader. Is this like way too far? I can't believe I'm not getting any questions at all. And there are still people watching this, because this is like all the way down the rabbit hole right now. So if you recall, I can get out the module in the loader, right? So I can pull this and I can send this down. I'm sending down options because I feel like it. But what I can do is I could send down something like this, and then I'd get the options and I would get this ID, right? I'm going to remove that for now. But I know I can do it. So what I can do in here is I could say, in the hook, I want to say, if we have an ID that matches one of the ones we earlier paired with data. Then we need to add data to the locals as item. I think that is the way to do it. I think that's it. Didn't say it came quick, but I think that's it. Now, there's a lot of this that's kind of like a theory here that I made because I haven't actually implemented any of it. But I think that's ultimately going to be the solution to this problem. And I don't see any way it can go wrong because all we're doing is this kind of actually fits in really nicely with what I was saying earlier, just kind of out of like a feeling that it would be what we would have to do, which is like a lot of the action is taking place in this hook. This is where we're going through the content types. This is where we're going through the data. We're associating the data with the object. So I want to do most of the work here and then just do like a quick and dirty association there because I don't want to have to go all the way back through the content types again and go through the data because I've already done that. I've paired the data with the templates already here. So what we're doing is like this is absolutely the simplest way that we can get a reliable pairing of data to module, right? And so we're making a list of these things and we'll just store them on this somewhere, like this underscore or like template pairs or something. And then in this hook, it'll just go through and as it goes and compiles each one, as soon as there's one that matches an ID where it needs to take some data, we add that to the locals and that's it. And the way we do that is pretty straightforward actually, and I already have tested this. I promise it works. It's compiler.plugin. And this is before load or compile, right? And here, previously it was just options. But I guess what this is going to end up being is options and ID. And so what we'll do is we'll just say if ID is equal, well, we'll do like, let's just say this is called list.template pairs. Whatever, it's a stupid name, but like, stick with me here. We'll try to find one that matches t.id equals ID, right? And so that will just say like, okay, if we can actually get the ID to match one of the ones in these pairs, and this would have to come out, right? So this would come out as like match, and we would just say if there was a match, we would go object.assign because JavaScript is a terrible language and allows you to mutate things all the time, but sometimes it's convenient. And we would say options. We would just do item. And it would be match.data. That would be it. That would be it. This is assuming all the other work here is done and that the ID property is actually called ID, etc., etc. But is that okay? This is interesting. Sorry, I just saw this comment. Okay, interesting watching work. Oh, nice. We got some spike messages. Yeah, this could even be one line. So this is going to be the ultimate, solution right here. Is that we're just going to come in this second hook, and this is going to be the spot where we get that item added here accurately. And if we pull this off, the advantage will be, there will be a few advantages, right? Okay, so this is such an involved, I'll read that later, sorry, Will. This is such an involved fix, and it might seem ridiculous because we already have template writing working. But the reason I'm doing this, there's a couple of them. So the first one is that when I manually write here, I mean, first of all, you're completely locked into reshape, right? Like, if you're not using reshape, and I think that like most to all of Spike users are, because it's our default, it's what we're pushing, it's the most reasonable and flexible option. But you don't have to. You don't have to use reshape. You can use Spike with anything. As you saw in the Spike walkthrough, like, we put in reshape as a loader, but you could just put in another loader and use that, and it's totally fine. Am I going to offer you as like deep of support of it? Probably not, because it's better to just stick with the standards for reasons that are written up in articles that I'll link later. But this is like an 100% lock-in. I mean, it requires reshape into here. It requires the loader. These are like extra dependencies for this project. It doesn't use the webpack pipeline at all, which sucks. And then we have this whole loader context thing, right? Because when you configure reshape, what you can do is, let me see if there's any examples of this. Locals. I don't think I have any here. I was just working on some examples though. I think they were in the loader. Let me just go quickly to it, because I know I can get a good example. And after this, I really have to go at 8 o'clock. Just get tied up in this stuff. It's my life. Okay, so I definitely have an example in here, and it is here it is. So when you pass in locals, it can be an object, or it can be a function that returns an object. And the advantage of passing a function that returns an object, you've probably seen this for Spike page ID, which is one of the most notable examples. But there are a lot of other possibilities here that I would encourage people to experiment with. The advantage of passing a function, though, here is that you get this loader context. You get the full loader context available to be passed in as your locals or into any plugins that generate locals, right? And when I talk about the loader context, I'm talking about all of this stuff in here, right? You get this ._module, you get this .resource path, like everything that is available to a loader is also available to you for any type of reshape plugin that you feel like adding, which is cool and opens up a lot of capabilities. But the problem is, let's see, I was down. This is not where I was looking for. Okay, so the problem is when I generate this manually and I do this compile here outside of a loader in a plugin, I don't have the loader context. So the reason this fix came up is because, let's see, where is that? Are you kidding me? Really? Doesn't even make any sense. Okay. Did I delete that line? I think I did. Oh man. I really deleted it? Ridiculous. Okay. Sorry. Let's I'll just pull it up. This is reshape loader. All right. So what I had been doing previously was I found this hook where I could go in. I wasn't even looking for load. I was looking for a spike. Wow. I'm losing it. I'm losing my marbles. This is why I need to leave right now. After this example, I promise. I'm out. All right. So I found a hook buried deep, deep within webpack's options. And it's not on the master branch, but it's on the next branch. We're getting there, guys. Okay, look at all these contributors. Bunch of carrots contributed here. Got one non-carrot. You guys got to step up your game. Okay. So I found this webpack hook. I'm digging through their docs, and I wanted to know where do they generate the loader context, because then I can pull it out, and then I could use it when I manually compile the file, right? So I found it. It's in here. It's compilation plugin, normal module loader. I don't know what this stuff means at all, but I figured out that this is where the loader context is generated. This is like the point in Webpack's process that it is. So what I did is I just pull it out as this.loader context. However, this is some other file's loader context. Every file that goes through the loader gets its own context that has its own path and its own options and stuff like that, right? So this is just some random file's loader context. I don't know what I was thinking when I put this in. I guess I don't know. This is confusing, all right? So I just pulled some random file's loader context and I saved it away. And then down here, I just added this in. I added that in for the options when options get parsed. The loader.parse options, this is when that function is actually executed, and this is the context it gets. So I pretty much just passed in some other random files loader context, and that was the end of that. However, it obviously is bugged. If you try to use any locals that use the loader context, especially if they use the path, you'll just get another random files path. So something like spike page ID, if you use that in a single page template for a contentful item, it would give you the wrong page ID. It would give you some other random template that wasn't the one you're processing. And you know why that is? Because this template doesn't have a loader context at all. A loader context for this template doesn't exist in the first place because it's not part of Webpack. I am manually creating and processing and writing this file right here. You can see it. The file never goes through Webpack at all. So there's like this split between like the way of doing it where things go through Webpack like they're supposed to, and then like this way where it's just like, all right, I didn't want to deal with all of the back and forth, like trying to figure out how to get this to go through Webpack, but get multiple templates out of it, etc. So I just did it manually. And it causes like bugs, it causes more complex code. It's just not the right way to do it. You know, it's just not the right way to do it. And it introduces bugs that cannot be solved, especially the one with this loader context. Like there's no way that I'm ever going to be able to pass through a correct full loader context for processing a file that Webpack is not even aware of and hasn't generated a loader context for. So not only is it like questionable, but also it is bugged. And there is no way to solve the bug other than this type of refactor that brings the file into Webpack's pipeline and processes it that way. So that was why this change originally came around. And with that, I'm not actually going to implement this because it's getting late and I need to leave and stop programming and eat food. However, I will be back to work on this more, certainly tomorrow. It might be on stream, it might not, depending on if people ask me to do it on stream. If it is, I probably won't be talking as much. I'll probably just be writing code and listening to music because I've already talked through this, pretty thoroughly today. And it's all here in this little comment block. So if anybody wants to check it out, the process of actually writing this tomorrow, which I would estimate it might be like 30 minutes to an hour or so, depending on how many problems I run into. Just let me know and I'm happy to stream it up. And if not, I will write this and I'll put up a pull request and I'll link it and you guys can check it out. But that is all for me today. So if there are any final questions, I'll leave like a minute gap, which seems to be the delay between the chat and my real life actions, for anyone to shoot them in here, and I'll try to field them real quick. And if not, which I assume will be the case, we will call it a day. And I hope that this was somewhat interesting and informative, even if it was totally into the deep end of webpack and spike. So, but I'm kind of glad it happened like that, because this is the kind of stuff that needs to be, like the simple stuff is the simple stuff. I feel like it's easy to find a lot of resources on that type of thing, but it's not quite as easy to find resources diving into the really involved things. It's a delicate balance, though, because obviously simple things are much more accessible, widely applicable, and understandable. But I feel like there are plenty of people that are filling that type of role much better than I could, so I'll just go for the esoteric. Thank you, Christopher. I appreciate your tuning in, checking it out. I really do. Okay, well, with that, doesn't look like we have any questions. If you do, and you were tuning in from Twitter, feel free to join our lovely Gitter chat room. It is right here at gitter.im/staticdev/spike. It's very active. We have a lovely community of people in here that talk a lot about static development and spike work, and a lot of people trying to contribute and do great things. And I know some of those people are here watching today, so I appreciate coming through. And we're down to our last two, so I'm going to shut the stream off. Thank you guys for tuning in, and see you next time.